Howdy, folks. Craig Lavati here with the Houston Museum of Natural Science and the Beyond Bones podcast. Today's episode is very special for me. We're talking to Catherine Boughal. She is the park naturalist for the City of Pearland Parks and Recreation Department. They're doing a lot of good work out there, getting kids and families back out into nature. Does this count as nature? I don't know. Howdy, folks. Craig Lavati here with the Houston Museum of Natural Science. This is, of course, the HMNS Beyond Bones podcast. Today, I co-host, it's producer Johnny.
Howdy, howdy.
Yes, Kat is getting things drilled into her jaw or something. Either way, it's dental things that are scary, and we won't talk about them.
She's getting new T-Rex teeth.
She's getting new T-Rex teeth. Yes, she's getting teeth for ripping and tearing of flesh and not just chewing. We did have James on to talk about this a little bit more. Yeah. Anyway, you can also check out our podcast on YouTube, of course, but also on Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and Spreaker. Did I say that right? Or it's Spreaker. Spreaker. Anyway.
With more being added all the time.
Yes, and we're working on Apple. Johnny was just telling me we're working on getting Apple, but you have to do all kinds of weird magic rituals and stuff to get your podcast on Apple. And we're on Spotify, and I'm hoping that Bruce Springsteen doesn't pull his music off of the thing because we talk about space things here.
Let's not get into that.
Bruce Springsteen, anyway. I was trying to make a joke. All right. Today's episode, we are joined by my new friend, Katie Boughal. EduKatie, as people know her in Pearland. She is the park naturalist for the Parks and Recreation Department in my old hometown, Pearland, Texas. Katie, how are you doing?
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Sorry that Kat can't be here. She's going to be a little dinosaur after all of her dental work.
Oh my goodness. I'm cutting that out.
Okay. I told everybody when I was getting everybody pumped up for the show, I'm like, Katie's really awesome. We co-hosted some City of Pearland Christmas events 2 months ago, back at Christmas time. Had a great time. The weather was weird, but we hit it off really well. We're a really good dynamic, good comedy team. I think I think so. You're very punful, and I'm very dry and self-deprecating. So there's deprecating. There you go. Yeah, so anyway, and I was really excited. I saw, you have your footprint on YouTube and on social media, and your job is to get kids in the Pearland area excited about nature. And growing up in Pearland, I was surrounded by nature before things started to get overdeveloped. And so you have your work cut out for you, because there are a lot of places in Pearland that have obviously, they paved concrete, they've paved the roads, they've paved things, but there's still a few places in Pearland where you can still get into nature. And one of those is the Dolores Fenwick Nature Center, where you are right now inside of an aquarium.
Yes. Yeah. So as park naturalist, I work within Parks and Rec department, and biggest part of my job is basically environmental education. I like to say that I'm a teacher that doesn't have a regular class. I don't have to grade papers. I get to teach all age levels. It's not just one age level. I teach all the way from several months old to senior citizens. So I'm getting the gambit of anybody that wants to learn about nature. They can come to the Dolores Fenwick Nature Center and do that. Primarily, school age children are a big portion of my job, but of course, within any environmental education, anyone and everyone is literally welcome. You mentioned Pearland, you grew up here, and it's changed quite a bit since you were a kid here.
Yes.
In the past, 10, 15 years, I think since about 2003, we've seen a huge population increase in Pearland. We went from a city of about 30,000 people to over 100,000. So it is a huge community that has exploded pretty much overnight. It's very quickly developing. It's expanded. It's also a very wide city. So, you think about Houston, we've got all of our beltways, we've got 610, Grand Parkway now, and they're all big circles around the city of Houston. But Pearland is like a big line. So where we see like in other cities, it's kind of a circular motion. Pearland's really spread out. So a big part of our job is also just connecting our community as well. So we can, pull from East Pearland and west side of Pearland and kind of come together to make sure we're meeting everyone. And what's really unique about Pearland as well is the diversity within our community. If you look at our demographics throughout the city, we have pretty much an even distribution between many different races. So, we've got people that are Indian. We have people that are in the Black community. We have people that are in the white community. We also have a significant Filipino, Vietnamese population as well. So there's a great not equalization between, but we're pretty much evenly dispersed, which is really, really cool because in the nature field, many times in populations that are historically underserved, they don't see nature as a place that they can access it. They don't feel safe in a natural environment. So part of my job is to make every person understand that nature is for you. You are welcome, and create environments so that way people from any population can come and feel safe and have access to nature.
And you're located right off Magnolia, and I grew up not too far away from where the nature center is. And I had, at the time, I thought to me, when I was a kid, it was a stream, but it was actually a retention pond / ditch. Mm-hmm. But even then, I had, I could see turtles and I could see all sorts of strange fish and birds in the trees before they, knocked everything down and put up a new neighborhood. So I was always out on my dirt bike, my little Honda 50, puddling around, and then doing flips and doing things that I should have, been paralyzed and all these things. But I was around nature, and I definitely think that it has stuck with me through the years. I have a respect for it, healthy respect for it, because definitely I did, took a few spills and some itchy things, and but I also learned about honeysuckles, and I learned about the berries that I could eat, if I was taking a break off of the old dirt bike. So it was very magical, and I'm excited that you are a part of the team that is getting there. You're opening the doors to nature in Pearland, because like you said, Pearland is very wide. If you look at the map, it's weird because it goes, so it's west of 288 and then all the way down 518 to, I guess, the border of Friendswood. But then it also goes a little farther south and north, yes, up until about the Beltway. So there's a lot of, would you call them wetlands? Or, I mean, there's a lot of ponds, there's a lot of streams, there's a lot of there's tons of water out there too.
Yeah. So within Pearland, so if we look at the whole map of like the United States, the part of Texas that we are in should have been coastal tallgrass prairie, is one of the most endangered habitats in the United States. And a lot of the coastal tallgrass prairie has pockets in it for wetlands. So if you think about like a prairie, it's rolling grasses, rolling hills. There's not very many trees. But as the plains kind of roll, there's going to be natural pockets where you get puddles and lakes and streams. And that's where our wetlands come in. So part of our work within Parks and Recreation Department, I'm in the Division of Natural Resources. So some of my coworkers help to do our natural resources manager. His job is literally conserving our natural resources. So he does habitat restoration projects, which I then tie into some of our field trip programming, so that way we can bring school children out to those places and teach them about, hey, this is habitat restoration work. This is why we're doing that. Because as cities have developed, the wildlife has then lost its habitat. Where is it going to go? So part of our work is to establish places within those developed lands that can be designated as a wildlife space, because as we're developing in such a way that it's so fast that nature can't keep up with it. The animals, like the birds, the turtles, they're all still there. They just need a spot that's designated for them to go to.
They get pushed out and pushed into other little
yeah, they get pushed out, pushed to another rural area. And like in all of our parks, in any city park, even in the city of Houston, nature is there. You just have to look for it. Turn over a rock, look underneath that bench you're sitting on, the trash can, flip up that trash can lid. You will find nature everywhere, especially if you come at nighttime too. Many animals have kind of adapted to being nocturnal because there's less people around. So part of our work within natural resources is to make sure we're conserving those habitats, so that way not only people can enjoy it, but also our wildlife within our city has a place to go that is safe.
And now go ahead, Johnny. Sorry. Go ahead.
You touched on something there, turning over rocks, and you can find nature everywhere. What it kind of spurred this idea, this thought. What advice would you have, and maybe what services do you provide to kids, not just kids, the young at heart, because you said you did several months old to 100 years old,
seniors.
Exactly. So I was lucky enough to grow up mostly in homes like with backyards in around Houston area, North Houston, Piney Woods, all that kind of stuff. So I literally had nature just right out the back door to go see water moccasins and cardinals and blue jays and just get out amongst it. Like Craig said, with the dirt bike, we would ride our bikes around in the woods there. No helmets. This was the 80s and early 90s. Don't do that.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, helmets that was for when mom was around.
Yeah. So and my mom told us, she said when we moved to Houston, she looked up the local flora and fauna. I promise I'm going to get to my question. She looked up the local flora and fauna and said, I know the deadliest thing out here is a water moccasin, and you guys are 7-10 years old. You'll have several hours to get to the hospital, which is just 10 minutes away. So she said, go out and play. You're never going to ride your bike far enough away that you can't, come back and go to the hospital in time. So she would rather us have a full kind of childhood experience out in nature, which I'm very thankful for, because she knew that the deadliest thing, other than like falling out of a 100-foot pine tree, was going to be a snake. That if we had regular, the anti-venoms.
Children are also very deadly too.
Other kids are deadlier than snakes to me. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. The question I'm getting to is other kids and people who live in or growing up in apartments who maybe don't have the nature right out their back door. Is there anything that they can experience around their immediate vicinity? And what do you provide to those people to get them out into nature?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, in part of our, as civilization has developed, there is a kind of theory going around as nature deficit disorder. So it's basically people are, growing more and more disconnected with nature. As we become more urbanized, we're not connected with where our food comes from. Like if you ask many children, they're like, oh, it might, my corn and my green beans and stuff came from the grocery store. It's like, no, it was grown in a field and all those things. The chicken you're eating grew up on a farm. And before that, it was, this bird in this jungle that was domesticated over time. So basically more and more over time, people have become disconnected with nature in all forms. And it's generational as well. So if you have parents that are like, no, I'm not going to go out in nature, then the next generation, their children have never had that experience to go out in nature, and they won't teach their children about it. So it's increasing over time. So with our programs that we offer here at the Nature Center, many of them they're family programs. We bring families out together so we can teach them, this is how you can go camping. We provide the gear for you, so you don't have to spend money buying the sleeping bag and the tent and this and that and this and that. We provide it for you so you can kind of test the waters a little bit in a city park where the bathrooms are close by, if the weather's nice. If it starts to rain, you can get in your car and go home because you're 5 minutes from home. With those programs, though, there is still a fee to attend the program. So also what we do, we also offer free programming. So we offer times where people can come up to the Nature Center and experience a program that it includes science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so some of those STEM concepts, and it's a free program. You just have to get here to enjoy it. We also take programming to our parks. So if there's, we try to use different local parks in our area to offer those programs to encourage people, like, this is your park that's in your neighborhood. This is what nature we can find in it. And like for adults, we offer monthly nature workshops. And some of those workshops we can include are apartment balcony gardens. How can you incorporate pollinators even just on your apartment balcony? What plants grow well in a pot? What plants do well with little sunshine? Because if your apartment doesn't face the sun, what do you do? So offering those different types of programs help to, bring people that are in those urban deserts, a little bit more close with nature.
Yeah, we have Urban Harvest up here in town, and Urban Harvest, obviously that stuff is applicable everywhere. And they're always talking about little gardens on patios, things like that too. So there's obviously there's a movement for that. So speaking of that too, since COVID hit, have you noticed more people out and about in Pearland in nature, not just at the town square mall or the Walmart?
Yeah. So as soon as, and when 2020 hit, when we kind of shut down everything, we were right in the middle of our spring break programming, which also coincides with our Nature Center's anniversary of opening. So it was our first year anniversary. We had all these programs going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, we stopped. It was like, put the brakes on, and all of our parks within the city of Pearland saw a huge explosion in people coming out to the parks. It was great. We've seen so many people coming to the parks, but also at the same time, you have people that don't know the park etiquette. They're taking their dog on a walk. They don't understand the importance of removing your dog's feces from the park. They're taking trash with them and they're throwing it away in the trash can. But what do you do when the trash can is overflowing? Yeah. Those kinds of things. So, teaching those practices of leave no trace, whatever you pack in, you pack out. It really helps with our parks crews, and also helps for the next person that's coming. We saw a huge explosion in people using our parks, and we're still seeing a very diverse increase in people that are attending our nature and outdoor programs now as well. With a lot of our surveys, these are families that it's their very first time coming out into nature. They haven't felt safe in nature before and they want to learn more, but they don't know where to start. That's a big thing. If they're like, well, we want to go outside and we want to take a walk, but we have no idea where to start. Like there's not just like in school, you learn how to do your math, you learn how to do like certain science things, but how do we just go outside and enjoy nature? Like, how do I do that? There's not really people that teach you how to do that. And
it sounds for a lot of people, it sounds crazy to say, I don't know how to do this, but it is true because sometimes it's an emotional boundary. You don't know exactly how far you can go, or you don't know where humans can walk, or you don't know that kind of thing, or you're scared somebody's going to, think you're doing something wrong. I've heard that from plenty of people from all walks of life. And we need to, reiterate to people, and I think your team is doing that as well, to reiterate that these places, they're for all of us. And it's not just, a certain person. You can go to these places safely, and it's good for everybody.
And you can, and your Google Maps, type in park or nature reserve or nature or something like that. I'm lucky to live in Missouri City where, Sugar Land is right here, and Highway 6. We have amazing parks around here.
Yeah, and there's a really good mountain bike park in Sugar Land.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff. And kind of like I knew that around here there were parks and nature reserves and things like that. But there are so many that I've lived in this house for. We lived in this house for 2 years. As after my son was born, that we realized there's a park called McNaughton Park, which is basically bike riding distance from us, which is this converted old par 3 9-hole course that they converted to just walking trails and rolling kind of prairie land. It's really, really nice. But I was here for 2 years before I knew that was in my back door. So just going on Google Maps, using technology in your pocket and type in park. And even if you live in an apartment southwest side of Houston, something like that, you type in park, you'll see. And not only will you find out where the park is, you can easily find out just even through Google Maps on a little side screen that shows up like what the hours are, dusk to dawn, whatever kind of rules for the park, when's busy, when's not busy, and things like that. Katie, I did want to ask on the subject of parks and being outside and even camping. Would you say that sleeping outdoors can be intense?
It definitely can be intense.
Oh, we were so good. We were so good. We're 20 minutes in. You wrote that one. I think I was like, oh, here comes the pun.
Yep, I know. And I feel like I've been more serious than I normally am. I'm very passionate about connecting people with wildlife.
Yeah.
And even from educational conferences that I've been to, the majority of the people attending these conferences that are teaching at the conferences are usually middle class or upper middle class white people. And it's not that people of color don't see nature as a value, but they don't have the time, because many times, if there's some kind of social economic impact within their life, they don't have time to go out and recreate. If mom and dad are working 2 or 3 jobs, older brother and sister are helping raise the kiddos that are younger than them, they don't have the access to drive a car to go to that local park. So that's another big push within Pearland. We have walking trails that connect like 26 miles parks. And our goal is to have every home or every residence within 10 minutes walking distance of a park. So you can just take a short walk and make it to a park nearby and experience, and even like playing on the swing set, all those kinds of things. I would still consider that being out in nature because, you might find a spider or a bug or green tree frogs love to get up on the tops of slides. A snake might be underneath the slide as well. So, that's kind of the gateway. Go to the slide. It's the gateway to nature. And then, then you might go off to the trees and look at some of the trees.
Learning opportunities, learning moments.
And that's
you guys also use the iNaturalist app is something I always preach about too. And I know you guys were a part of, I guess, the Bio Blitz every single year.
Yeah. So within
you can take your phone to the park and you can see, if you see something, tag it, and then you can go, oh, that's the name for that thing.
Yeah, so iNaturalist is basically like an app it's like Facebook for bugs and insects and animals. So you can basically use that, and even if you don't know anything about anything, if you're like, I think that's critter. I don't know what kind of critter it is. Oh, it's a critter. You can take a picture of it, upload it, and somebody that does know what it is can help you identify it. So it's a great way to, experience nature and learn more about it. Because, you might take a walk through your local park every single night and you see that's a weird looking mushroom on that tree. And then, by the time you get home, you've forgotten about it. But if you use that iNaturalist app, you can snap that picture of that mushroom, in a couple of days. Someone that's a mushroom expert has seen it, helped you identify it. And now you know, hey, that is a pig's ear mushroom. Cool. Don't eat it because it's probably super poisonous, as most funguses are. They're fun guys, but, you don't want to eat them.
No. And some people might say that
you missed the pun. There was the pun right there.
I know. Yeah.
Well,
you tried to ignore it. I totally, it went over both of our heads. And that's the thing too. And the way you educate people, EduKatie, is so beautiful and it's amazing too. And you do, you're very bubbly and you smile and you're like, you're like the welcome committee for nature in Pearland, I would like to say.
I actually live in the woods here at the park, and when people come into the park, I'm like, hello, covered in moss and sticks and stuff.
She's under the troll throwing out riddles.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of bridges in Pearland too to hide under. Yeah, there's a lot of bridges in Pearland.
There are. We actually have a bat colony underneath one of our bridges, the Fight Road Bridge. It's around 10,000 Mexican free-tailed bats. Yeah.
Wow.
I
didn't know that there was
across the street from the Nature Center.
Yeah. I know where that is. I just didn't know that there was, because we have the Waugh Street bat colony over here, which all the tourists come and they love to smell bat guano. They love it. It's funny you brought that up because at the museum, bats actually live under one of our awnings on our loading dock. And one of the first things I noticed when I got there, when I started working there, was I know what guano smells like because I've gone under the bridges and stuff to see the bats.
Know what it smells like.
There we go. I guano what it is. And I could smell the guano. And that's another, speaking of having sort of a nature IQ, you can pick up on signs from your senses of what's around you.
Yeah, you can definitely, if you spend a lot of time around spiders, you might get a spidey sense. Just a joke there.
If you guana know a secret, you know what kind of bridges and stuff to look for. We covered it plug in the video.
You mean the bridges of Harris County?
Yeah, the box
or the bridges of Brazoria County. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's all the design of the bridge, the box beam design with the little crevices that they can get up into. And like I mentioned in that video, and just perfect examples, Craig, with the museum, if you think like a bat, your spidey sense, you kind of know what designs, what kind of architecture works for bats. And you don't have to go, if you're thinking, I've got to go to Austin to see the bat emergence, or I got to go to the Street Bridge to see the bat emergence. No, just kind of when you're cruising around, when you're going to HEB or Kroger or McDonald's or whatever you're doing, just kind of keep an eye out. Oh, that might look like a place where, 100,000 bats might live. And then if it's safe to do so, just kind of, cruise out there around dusk or when the bat emergence is, and you might be able to see something just almost literally in your own backyard. Even if you're in an apartment, that's a good point too. Apartments, a lot of infrastructure. There's places where bats can be. And you'll know, but it took me a while to realize this, but just kind of being out in nature and learning these things. When you're out at dusk, it kind of blew my mind whenever it was in life that I realized this. Oh, those aren't little sparrows flying around. Those are bats. And it's like, it blew my mind. So, and you can see that living in an apartment.
Yeah. And even like if you're at a sports game or anything at nighttime, if you literally just look up at the sky, you will see bats. They're everywhere. And even children, they'll start to be like, oh, that's a bat, that's a bat, that's a bat, that's a bat. And they fly differently than birds. They look differently. They sound differently. They're out at different times.
They taste different too.
Yeah, definitely.
Joke. Sorry. I'm trying to get into the fun. I'm trying to make jokes.
Yeah. But going back to what you were saying, Craig, like being bubbly and upbeat, I'm very passionate about wildlife. When I was a kid, Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin, what's his name? Jack Hanna. He was a little bit older. He was a little just past my generation. But I still saw him on things. I saw all these, guys out, researching and doing all these really cool things with animals. And I was like, where are the women that do this?
Yeah. Is there a female naturalist? I mean, Bindi Irwin is doing a good job of that. Like her dad and her brother too. But is there anybody?
The gorilla lady, the lady who worked with gorillas. What was her name?
Diane Fossey and
Cat Havens works with us. So.
Gorillas, and Jane Goodall was chimps.
Jane Goodall, she is royalty among naturalists and amazing.
I think a lot of times, like the women are the ones kind of behind the scenes. They're a little bit more introverted. They're the ones that are taking really good notes and publishing the papers. And, the ones that are on TV, like your Coyote Petersons and, Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin, they're a little bit more bubbly. They're a little bit more, I don't know.
Camera friendly.
They have good PR. They have good PR.
They just have a better PR person. I think also like being out in nature, like, organically, sometimes it is easier for men to be out in nature, just, body parts and all that kind of stuff. It just makes it easier. But I mean, it's not to say that women can't, we are tough. We can do a whole lot of stuff. And so like as a kid, I got to see like all these, biologists out there doing things. And it's like, where are the girls at? Like, what? And it's like, of course, like Steve Irwin always had Terry Irwin with him, but she was like, in the background, like writing the notes and stuff, like, okay, we got this today. We did this today. And she had like her segment on the show, but it wasn't her show. It was Steve's show. And she was there. So, and like with what I do, by no means do I think I'm on that level at all. Those guys are like gods within the environmental education community, kind of untouchables, especially Steve Irwin, just amazing person. Yeah. But, in what I do, if I can just be a fraction of that, that would be amazing. And like with like my growing up and all of that kind of stuff, like I've always wanted to go outside, at the end of the street, I'd always flip up the water meters. There were always toads inside.
Yeah, me too.
We'd get a bucket and pick up all these toads and be like, Mom, look what we got. And she'd be like, okay, let them go. They don't come inside. And we just dump the bucket and, 20 toads go hopping out. Did
you collect doodle bugs?
Oh yeah, roly-polies all the time.
Yeah, I did that.
Always. Ladybugs,
I used to collect June bugs.
Uh-huh.
I used to love collecting those. Definitely for some reason in Pearland when I was little, we had the little tiny frogs.
Oh, okay.
Like the ones that are like the size of a dime.
Yeah, I think there might be cricket frog.
I never see those anymore, but they were super tiny.
At the Nature Center, we have a ton at the Nature Center. Our pond.
I'm gonna get like a gallon of them next time I'm up there. I'm gonna be out there.
No, leave them there because they're good for the ecosystem. You don't want to interrupt.
But I remember those, the little baby ones, and then we also had a lot of geckos in my neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
I grew up not too far away from the Nature Center.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about the life cycle. And in my case, unfortunately, growing up, learn about death a little bit when you get this frog. And you put in this container and then you go inside, like not even for an hour, like in the summertime, and you come back and, oh, poor petrified frog. Some frogs were sacrificed unintentionally for me to better understand nature, and that frogs, most frogs need to be around water to stay hydrated. That even in a Texas summer, if they're out, if they can't, I felt so bad. I was like putting myself in his little froggy brain, like, oh, but he can't get out of this container.
This huge giant picked me up and decided to throw me in a jar and leave me for dead.
But I learned so much through that experience. And, you know, I know you're at the aquarium. You got an aquarium behind you. I tried to turn my camera to my little 2.5 gallon tank here. It's kind of terrible to say through trial and error with small animals, you know kind of what works. And I think it's kind of a benefit to an unfortunate kind of series of learning events that now when my son is going to, you know, inevitably get into frogs and picking
don't
up
put him in a jar,
things,
please don't.
I'm going to know, like, hey,
don't.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say, hey, Riker, we can't just, we need to put this somewhere where it's going to survive. Yeah. Don't ask Daddy knows how I know it's not going to survive there, but let's put it somewhere where it can thrive and be happy. But yeah.
And like having those, like, you know, small experiences as a kid, like my grandparents were fortunate enough to have a beach house on Galveston Island. So I spent tons of my summers in Galveston, and we'd collect hermit crabs. We'd go out on the beach at night and collect ghost crabs. They're all over the beach at night. They're super fun to catch. And, you know, we'd bring them back home. We were the hermit crabs in a bucket, and, you know, they wouldn't make it. And so that's one of those things where, you know, whatever adult you're with as a child, that's when having those experiences and knowing, hey, we need to put this back because we need to respect nature as well. So it's one of those lessons I try to bring into my programs as well. It's like, yeah, we can observe and we can look and we can touch, but we need to put this back so it can finish its life, you know, to have that healthy respect of nature, which I think we kind of talked about a little bit earlier with just venomous animals, but with any animal, there should be a healthy respect. You know, having all those animals together in that ecosystem they live in, you know, there's that biodiversity and interdependence happening. So even just taking, you know, one frog or one animal out of that ecosystem changes it a whole lot. And like, if you have like a fish tank at home, you know, like if you fill your water and don't get the chemicals just right, you can mess up the whole tank overnight.
Yep.
So I'm a squirrel guy. So squirrels to me are like sacrosanct. Like I if I see somebody hurting a squirrel or trying to hurt a squirrel, I flip out. That and tortoises and squirrels and turtles are like, those are my jam. I grew up raising turtles. I grew up, you know, being around tortoises, all that kind of good stuff. And if you guys have a squirrel problem in Pearland, I know who you should blame, and his name is Craig Lavati Sr. And he lives in a neighborhood off of McLean Road, not too far away from where you are. And he makes it his duty every day, because he's retired, to feed every single squirrel in the neighborhood. And I know they come from miles around because they know that my dad is going to feed them. And that has instilled my love in squirrels too. I know I have a squirrel call I can do with my mouth, that I can make a squirrel stop in its tracks.
Do it.
You kind of,
I know. I was like, you
can't just say that and not do it.
So what I do, so my dad taught me the squirrel call, and I don't know if it's real or not. Katie, you're probably going to
I've talked to a few squirrels in my day, but I don't know.
So what you do,
legitimate call.
I live in Montrose, and I have a giant squirrel tattoo on my leg that says Montrose because I love squirrels.
Yeah.
And Montrose has tons of squirrels. So I have this thing now, when I see a squirrel, if it's close enough to me, I can make it stop in its tracks, and I talk to it. And you kind of go, because that's the sound they make. You're going to cut that for the show. I'm pretty sure that's going to be on the preview now. Anyway, so that's what I do that. And the squirrels will stop. They'll stop and they kind of go, what is that? And then their tail wags. And then it's like they're kind of saying like, you're making fun of us. You're mocking us. And then they'll keep on running. They love it too if I'm walking around with Prince, my dog, who looks like a squirrel, but he's white. And a lot of times I'll look at him and look at me and kind of go, okay, whatever. Are you feeding me? No. Okay, cool. Let's go. But that's one of those cool things that, like, yeah, I may be a city guy. I may live in the middle, you know, of this big bustling neighborhood. But even here in our neighborhood, I'm surrounded by, there's raccoons, there's squirrels, there are all sorts of things. And I guess, Katie, the thing is about, even with Pearland, even all the developments going on over there, you guys are lucky to still have nature surrounding you. And that is just a very special thing. And we even have kids, and I do a lot of eavesdropping even at the museum. And I hear kids, if they see wildlife in there, they say, hey, we have those in our backyard, or we have that. That's really cool. And I think that our generation, if I could say that, all people our age, we are doing a good job of instilling nature into the kids that we're raising. And I definitely think, and Katie, you're doing a good job of that, because you talked about the demographics in Pearland, but one of the things I think we leave out is the age range. And we have a lot of younger parents that they don't mind strapping on, hiking boots or, good walking shoes and taking kids out there. That's a very special thing. And you're a part of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. And like, connecting people with nature is, it's a lot of fun. But it's also really cool, like to, when somebody sees something they've never seen before, or we had a camping program that we did, and we had a little bit of downtime between bedtime and dinner. And so our dinner and bedtime, I should say.
Where do y'all camp at out there?
We actually camped at Independence Park.
Oh, nice.
Parks, yeah. So we were out there, had 3 or 4 families, and there was a couple of trees that had started to rot. There were some spots in there. So the kids had their flashlights, and we were looking around, and, we found a cockroach sitting in there. It was pretty cold that night, so it wasn't doing much, thankfully. And then we also found a tree frog literally inside the tree, keeping warm. So, doing things like that where kids can just organically discover nature and then answering their questions when they do have them. It's just so much fun. It's very rewarding work.
And I will say this too, and maybe we can all agree on this, I hope so, but when you educate children on life, things like that, they become a little bit more gentler in the rest of their lives. I've noticed. Like, I know that when I was a little kid, there was, I think little boys and little girls too, we always go through that phase where we just want to smash everything. And I think learning more about nature, and it wasn't just, I'm going to stomp on these ants, or I'm going to stomp on this roach. I reached a point when I was little where I would let things go, or I would free them, or I would just look at them, and I wasn't, all about shooting it with a BB gun. That makes a more well-rounded person of any background.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do the same thing. I hate cockroaches. I'm gonna, whoever designed the universe, not to get specific on the show, but if I can ask them, I'd be like,
now
hey,
we're going to get thrown off of Spotify. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so that was a sweet beta test. We can leave roaches out of the 1.0 build, right? Anyways, but like you said, I don't like cockroaches at all. But if I can help it, like if there's one in the house somewhere, I will try my best.
To usher it out.
Usher it out. Well, I'll slip a paper, I'll put under a cup and with paper or whatever, or I'll just be brave and grab it in my hand, not crush it, and throw it. Because I'm just thinking, for me, and maybe this is getting a little philosophical here, but like,
copping my hustle now, man.
There's no difference other than how cute something looks between Prince and a cockroach. I'm not comparing Prince to a cockroach. I'm just
some days I gotta tell you, some days
but like a cockroach and a cute cow or something like that. Like, they're all living things, and I'm like, if a dog walked into my house, I'm not, my first immediate response, I think a lot of people, I'm gonna stomp on this dog. No, that's horrible.
I can't stop thinking about roach milk now.
I would,
because you just brought up roaches, and you got roaches and cows. And now I'm just thinking about milking a roach.
How would you milk a roach?
They actually do produce like a milk for their babies. So roaches technically do have milk.
So speaking of roaches, and so if you're listening to this episode and you live here in Houston,
it's like a tangent.
Yeah, this is good. Because if you live here in Houston and you are listening to the show right now, go to the HM&S Museum Store website, and right now through Valentine's Day and a little bit after, I'm sure, you can name one of our hissing cockroaches, our Madagascar hissing cockroaches, at the museum after somebody. You can adopt a cockroach and then name it Steve or whoever, and you will get a certificate that says, hey, there's a roach at HM&S named Steve, and it's named after whoever. It could be your Valentine or an ex-Valentine or whoever.
Ex-wife.
Yes, and you get a little pin that says "Endless Love" because roaches are endless, and you get a little enamel pin, and you can put it on your jean jacket and stuff like that. So, HM&S loves roaches. And so that's why I'm glad you brought up roaches. That's a good tangent to go off on. So.
Yes. Yeah. They're one of those animals that they function in the ecosystem, and I don't particularly care for them, but I understand that their role and that they're important. It's very similar to mosquitoes. Right. They're terrible to us, but millions of animals thrive on them for food. So it's like, well,
yeah. It's like one of those things.
They got to stay.
And pollination, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently they pollinate.
Yes.
So
yes.
We're the ones that they don't live. We're the ones in their way.
Pretty much.
Like, it's not the other way around.
Named it for every animal.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking to us a minute ago about how like being in nature like made you feel calmer as a child. Yeah. And like a big part of that is actually, humans physically need to be outdoors. Yeah. And we have a city run YouTube channel called Adventures with EduKatie, and we do episodes on different topics. And one of our topics was the benefits of nature. I think it's episode number 2. And in that episode, we talk about all the different reasons that being out in nature is actually good for your physical, mental well-being. And part of that has to do with vitamin D absorption. We get vitamin D from some of the foods we eat. Mushrooms are a huge vitamin D. You wouldn't think about it like a mushroom, really. But yeah, they're packed full of vitamin D. Of course, we know from calcium, but in order for our body to properly use all of that, we have to have a component from the sun. So that helps to break it down and helps our body to absorb it. And with vitamin D, it's really important with inside our brain in passing back those neurotransmitters of serotonin and dopamine, which are how we feel joy. And to go deep science on all of this, being outside in nature is just good for your body because you're getting that vitamin D. You're outside, you're getting more oxygen, you're getting fresh air. In Japan, they have something called forest therapy, where they literally go out into the forest and they just sit and meditate and calm themselves. Yes, because trees and plants in general, they're constantly passing information back through each other. And with, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like I can't remember what it is, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. But basically being out in forested areas, you're ingesting, things from within the forest, but it actually helps to build your immune system. So if you look up forest therapy, I can't remember the name of it. I wish August was here. August is my cohort in crime here at the Nature Center. We always joke that we come as a pair, not because we're in Pearland, but because when we do a program, the other one is always there. We very much pick up for each other. He's the introvert, I'm the extrovert, kind of like Felix and Oscar on The Odd Couple. We finish each other out very, very well. We're a good working team. So, he would know what it is. I can't remember what it is.
I'll look it up.
Either way, it's
phyto something because it has.
Either way, it's something you say ingesting is because it's your whole. Our bodies are like filters anyway, so we're always grabbing stuff in. So it definitely that makes total sense, and that's why I need to go outside right now because my little guy has to go outside and go potty. So there we go. All right, Katie, thank you very much. Guys, if you live in Pearland or anywhere nearby, make sure you hit up the Dolores Fenwick Nature Center, knock on their door or their window and ask for Katie, and Katie will come out with a snake or a rat or something interesting that she's found, and
hopefully
she will
not a
show
rat.
it. No.
We don't have any here.
There we go. Go out to Pearland and go enjoy nature. Go anywhere and enjoy nature. Johnny, thank you for co-hosting today.
You got it.
And we talked a lot about nature, a lot about Pearland. It made me really happy in my heart. So guys, check out the City of Pearland YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, we give you carte blanche to click off of this and go check out their channel. Go check out Katie's work. It's really good. Katie, we need to host something else in Pearland soon.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Like we need to cut the ribbon on something.
The library's about to open. I'm sure they already have somebody else booked for that. But they've already booked.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, we already booked somebody.
But because they're opening a library, so they've booked somebody. I was waiting for that.
We need to have a. Is it too late? We should have put a pun counter on the side.